Buddy, I just wanted to make you guys aware that in the entire time that we've been working on this podcast, my good friend Jeff has actually been working on this wonderful and, from what I understand, kind of groundbreaking book on a topic that hasn't been delved into very much. He's just come out this past August in 2024 with his book, The Sino-Iranian and Sino-Arabian Relations in Late Antiquity, which is available through Brill and is also available open access as a free download. If you're interested, I'll include the link in the description. Jeff, you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, so here's the physical copy, and I invite everybody, if they're interested, to also download the free version of it. So this project was funded by the European Commission, and so I worked on it for 2 years while living in Ravenna, Italy. And the fruit of this project was a series of articles and this book. So why write a book about China and Iran and China and Arabia in late antiquity? So late antiquity generally being from around the 1st century of the Common Era till about the 8th or the 9th, roughly the first millennium of the Common Era. So why write about this? Well, because generally when we have talked about China's relations with foreign countries and cultures, the emphasis has been on India and Central Asia, primarily because Buddhism was the intermediary between these cultures and China. And there's this whole notion of the Silk Road, and it tends to emphasize China's silk trade with the rest of the world, but inevitably people just kind of go back to Buddhism. But the reality is that Persia, Parthia, and the Islamic world all had ties with China. And for about a century now, people haven't been really researching this topic in sinology, that is classical China studies. There was an author about a century ago, Bertolt Laufer, who wrote a book on China and Iran. And it's still a very good book, but since then, the field has generally been untouched. But when we look at the Chinese histories, what we can find is facts about historical events that occurred in the Near East, the West Asia, that are otherwise unaccounted for in the Greek, the Arabic, and the Syriac sources. So I look to the Chinese sources as a repository of some historical information that is otherwise unattested elsewhere. In some cases, it's even contentious because, for example, the King Khosrow II, who died in 628, according to the Greek and Arabic and Syriac authors, died in a palace coup, and his son deposed him. But the Chinese sources say that the Western Turks killed King Khosrow II, and so there's a discrepancy there, but historians have not really addressed it. Now, setting aside the history aspect, we also have to look at the cultural relations, the religion, and also the material culture as well. So certain things that we might take for granted, like brass, were imported from Persia starting around the 5th century to China. The Chinese didn't have the know-how to make brass themselves at the time, so it was an exotic metal. Other things like rugs, carpets, certain medicines, gemstones were brought from Iran to China, so it definitely affected the material history of China. And then finally, in the last chapter, I do look at how the Chinese received the first Arab envoys. The first one was in 651, and their understanding of the origin of the Arabs, which is different from how later Orthodox Islamic history frames this history. And the origins of Islam, as it's described in the Chinese sources dating from around the 7th century, is very different from what Orthodox history suggests. A lot of the elements in the story of the Prophet are recognizable in the Chinese sources, but it's still very different. So there's a very large discrepancy between the understanding of this religion according to Orthodox sources and also how even like contemporary people in the 7th century understood the rise of Islam. So I point out that the Chinese sources are there. They say a lot, and that we have to take them seriously, or at least take them into consideration. And so the fruit of this is this book, and I hope that it will be of service and of interest to a wide variety of scholars and general readers.
Thank you so much. And again, it'll be in the description if you would like to purchase it, but it's also available open access. Thank you so much, Jeff, for putting this out there and adding to the knowledge base of humanity.